Good evening. This is Public Access Michiana with, I call it our State of the Union. It's the beginning of the year. And we have a couple of members. Several couldn't make it. Mike Seneke couldn't make it. Robert Smith, who's been, we've been playing Robert and Judy the last month, I think. They couldn't make it, and Ben Giamo could not make it. But Dave Wemhoff is here, and Mike Nabalski is here. And we're going to try to formulate our State of the Union. In other words, who are we, what has been happening, and what do we see happening in the future. Mike is new on the board. You have an interest in public access operating at a good efficiency in the community. And why do you think it could be important for the community? Because you're involved, you work downtown, you're very involved in the community, and you see this as something that could enhance.
And with the young adult population being very much into social media and looking for ways to communicate their thoughts and opinions, this is a great opportunity to have an additional voice. And the mainstream dominant media is really limiting on what's reported out there. So this is a great way to for people to have a voice. So a year into the board participation, I'm really impressed with where we're going. So I think it's a great asset for the.
Okay. And Dave, of course, you've already put your opinion forth on why that's important. What we've been playing the last month was the trip we took to Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Battle Creek, and Wyoming.
I think you and Bob and some other folks went up there.
Yep.
That's all in Michigan, right?
Yep. Robert Smith, some local people, Bob Hedrick, Judy, who just retired from 42 years of public school teaching.
Oh, wow.
Their public access stations were very impressive. Grand Rapids, you're talking, even Wyoming is a suburb. It was $1 million operation as far as their facility. They built their own big, huge building.
In Kalamazoo.
Kalamazoo also. Wyoming gave us all kinds of equipment. Now this camera up here we're showing is just one of the bits of equipment they gave us to help us get our public access going in the direction that they're going. So if people have been watching the show the last month with Judy and Bob on, they saw little clips of our time in Battle and in Grand Rapids and in Kalamazoo, and they got to see how the communities there are very involved. And so if you want to produce a show there, your time is always available, and they can always rent out equipment, and they can put a show on. And some of those cities have 3 channels. We have 1. But you have to start somewhere. And we've been over a couple of years, and we need to expand.
Well, yeah, when you say we, you're talking about Public Access Michiana. So what Public Access Michiana does, it tells people about this opportunity in South Bend, in the community, in the Michiana community, to film and to play video. I guess it's video, not just audio, but it's video. The PEG channel, which is the public, the educational, and the governmental channel. Here in Michiana, that is run by Michiana Access TV, or MATV.
Yep.
They run that, they take care of that. And we tell people about that. We educate people about that, because it sounds like you had really a good trip up to Michigan, and that people there take it very seriously. The whole idea of being able to produce and show programs that are produced by people in that community. You got to kind of wonder, why do you think there's an interest in those communities? I mean, aren't the major corporations, I kind of picked this up from both of you guys, aren't the major corporations covering everything? I mean, look, if you don't like CNN, you go to Fox, ABC, NBC, CBS, they're honest, right? I mean, you can listen to them, they're going to tell you everything, and all your programs you need, it's all kind of there,
It's amazing what you don't know. It's amazing what you don't know if all you do is watch 16 Morning News. So that's what we're doing, and that's why we're here. Our organization is Public Access Michiana, which is really a PR and marketing arm for Michiana Access TV, if I understand.
Yeah, I don't think we have
We're not in league with them.
Right.
We're informally.
Right,
We may disagree with something. We can't tell them what to do,
right.
but we're
We're here to let
encouraging
we tell
them.
people about what they do and about the opportunity that people in the area have.
Right, we're here to let people know that they can put their own on a specific topic
Right.
and get it put on air on TV.
The reason that we're here on a practical point is that public access was in this area for about 20 years. And then 6-7 years ago, laws were passed and it was shut down. And the realization is that there was no advocacy group at all when it was shut down. And had there been an advocacy group, it might not have been shut down.
The Indiana Telecommunications Reform Act, if that's the correct phrase, and they changed the law so that the cable providers didn't have to provide the studios, or they didn't have to provide really the PEG channel. I mean, they had to make the channel available, as I understand it, but as far as the studio and the filming of the programs, producing the programs, they didn't have to provide a venue for that. And that's that. A couple of questions I want to ask you. I mean, what kind of programs have you seen up in Michigan? Have you seen here on Michiana Access TV? I mean, like news or music or arts, or what kind of stuff?
Well, I think it's been traditional ever since public access started taking root in America in about 1970. They said at all the meetings, 50% of the shows are religious, and mainly church. In other words, you got Muslims up in Grand Rapids using it, but traditionally, because this country's been more or less dominant religiosity, so the churches, which form the basis, of a healthy community, use this, and they're on there preaching in some way or another the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that right is right and wrong is wrong, and it's healthy for the community just from that. But artists use it. People have a gift or a trade, a talent. They use it. I mean, it's just unlimited what people want to share with the community. And it like Ann Arbor, it was Alicia up in Ann Arbor that was organizing the tour of those 4 cities. I've toured Ann Arbor. There's 20 city employed for their public access station.
Is that right?
10 are full-time,
Wow.
10 are part-time, employed by the city.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, because the city sees that as vital to their well-being.
Can you explain in what ways we receive support from whether it's South Bend or Mishawaka? Is there some financial support there?
Right. The reason we can be on air because there was a tri-city agreement, and for that the laws were different. So with the new laws being passed, we needed to have Mishawaka, South Bend City Council, and the County Council. They had to come into an agreement, which took a little. We were on the ground on that.
It took some work. Yeah, I mean, you were working it. I know I helped out a little bit. There were a lot of people who helped to make that happen. Trying to get the local community governments together, basically fund an executive agent, which became MATV, that would produce these things.
Right. When it was shut down.
And make the studio available and make the TV available.
When it was shut down, people like Sylvester Williams trying to get it back up, and he was very helpful to kind of like get things going. And then we had our own meetings. George Lane, St. Clair Poindexter, we met up in your office area there.
Right.
And eventually we decided to incorporate. I think George is the one that wanted to incorporate. I wasn't really, thought we had to.
Well,
Okay.
there were a lot of people involved.
A lot of people involved, and you're up against City Hall because City Hall was kind of on the track of not doing it. So you had to overcome that.
Well, what were those? I
I think the objection was money. I mean that they didn't want to, they didn't feel they could afford allocating any money to this when they needed it elsewhere. Okay, so
So it was not a fear of what the content might be out there, what people might put on.
well,
for
if
political
there
reasons.
was, it's not something that we could discover. You know, obviously, that's out there. That one of the reasons is they didn't want to have that free voice. But that's something hidden, and that's something in somebody's individual heart. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody's going to be out there saying,
Right.
I don't want them.
Well, that's, you know, we're filming this just a couple weeks after this whole Charlie Hebdo matter. So, you know, there's this real strong sense in America of free speech. I mean, and so, you know, you got to get kind of used to that idea that people could say things you may not like. But I think that there was local concern about funding this operation here with Michiana Access TV, and that was the main concern. But you know, I got to tell you, I think everybody came together in local government and made it happen.
It's good.
Right, I think, and that's what the history of public access is. It all, if the local people don't rise up and push it, it's not going to push itself. Okay, so what we did is what had to be done.
So that's why we're here.
Right, it took local people who you know, usually personally, I had already had a show, so I had a personal interest that I felt I wanted to use public access.
Peter, you've had a show, or you've been involved with public access for, I think, probably going on 20 years now.
I think it was back about 1986.
Oh, that's almost 30 years then.
I had a friend, and he's staying at the house right now. He's about 71, and he had his own little library of Christian tapes. And basically, I don't watch TV, and we had a rule in our house growing up, you know, 1/2 hour a day, and I was too busy anyway. But I'm not a TV watcher, so I didn't even know about public access. It came up to me because he would get a video, usually a Christian theme, and it might be only 45 minutes, and he didn't want a 15-minute space. So he had his camera, and he said, "Hey, is it all right if I film you? You know, you watch the and you talk about it, and like, fill in the 15 minutes." So I didn't. That's what you want? Yeah, let's do it.
That's how you got started?
That's how I got
Oh
started.
my gosh, isn't that something?
Right,
I
we'd
didn't
be
know that. That's cool.
outside. I remember we were outside at the Richard Bratton farm, the pro-life movement, and up against his barn, you know, and he would just film me. Well, then I got thinking. I said, "Hold it here. What is this? You know, I'd never watch it." And I said, he said, "This too. You got all these videos. Why don't I have my show and I'll put some of your videos on?"
Is that right?
Yeah, and I could film if it's a 10-minute gap, I'd film, and then after a while, I got thinking, I can say it better than some of these guys.
So you said, "I want my own show."
Yeah,
You want your hour show, and you ended up getting multi-hour long shows.
I actually, when they shut down, I had a show. Had 2 shows. It was 3 hours a week. One show would be 2 hours.
That's a long time.
I had, you know, Faith of Our Southern. I was interested in the Southern Fathers, Faith of Our Southern Fathers. You know, I had, you know, I tried to hit themes that were a little bit controversial because what's the,
You controversial?
Well-
No.
So
I want-
Peter, if folks are out there and they're wondering what are the parameters or the limitations of airing something, what would those be?
as far as what you can say, it's whatever the Supreme goes.
Right, because
Okay.
you're sitting here giving people ideas now what they could put on.
They can put anything on that's legal in this country, as far as the First Amendment. Now, Dave, you have more experience.
I tell you what, the Michiana Access TV people have done some really good stuff. If you want to, tell you something about Michiana Access TV, they got a website called matv.org, matv.org. And you can go to that website and they have a lot of good information there. For instance, they have an on-air calendar, which they update with some frequency, and it tells you what's playing that day. They have their mission statement, their strategic goals, and then how to contact them. So you can contact them by calling them at 574-288-7876, 574-288-7876. And if there's not somebody there, you can always leave a message, and leave a two. But also on their website, on the Michiana Access TV website, they've got forms. We can't do anything without forms, which is a good thing. And there's a form on how to produce a program form. There's a program playback contract, and there's a viewer comment. And I'm kind of getting up to your question, Mike, that you raised. And what they do, they ask you a number on these different forms, like the program producer form. If you put on a show, you're a producer, language correct. So you're a producer, like this is Public Access Michiana, we're the producer of this, the producer. But information they want for this form is like your name, your address, how to contact you, the description of the program, the website, the format, and there's different formats, and maybe Peter, you can talk about that. But then they also ask some questions on one of the other forms, the program playback contract, and they ask you a question. They ask, does your program contain potentially objectionable material or objectionable material? If so, you must use the TV-14 or TVMA contract on orange paper. If your contains intense violence, intense sexual, strong coarse language, or suggestive dialogue, it is rated TV-14. TVMA includes graphic violence, explicit sexual activity, or crude indecent language. So you got to use a different form for that. But that's all explained on the website. But there's a lot of different program formats, and this is something that Peter, you've helped me to understand, and you can probably talk better to this, because not only can you film in the studio that MATV has here, but you can also present DVDs.
Right. In Michigan, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Battle Creek, Wyoming. They were near now because and the tech,
They're loaning
the way they program.
Well, these days people are putting forth their own video elsewhere on the TV.
Right.
right.
The secret,
Yeah,
the secret, the secret of public access, not really a secret, is historically they totally lived locally.
Oh, yeah.
And if you put, it may not have any local effect.
It's all over.
Right. But since you live locally, it doesn't have an effect on you. Okay. People want to have feedback where they live. Okay.
I have watched Michiana Access TV on occasion. There are different programs that I've seen. I've seen talk programs, I've seen the religious programs. I've seen stuff that must have come in, I've seen locally produced programs. And it's great to see these programs because the background is like downtown South. And it's a nice town. I've been there. I've been at that place. I've been walking down that floor. It brings you into the story, and on a Sunday night you sit there and you kind of watch it and you say, hey, yeah, I've been on that bridge, yeah, and it does have a local flavor that you just you just beat when you turn on the TV. There's your hometown.
And so locally, people can access it through Channel 99. Is that right? Is it AT&T and Comcast, or
Yep.
who? Those are the two that air it.
Those are the only two. Is that if you have to have Comcast or
Dish won't do it, and some of the other avenues.
no, not at this point. And thinking of it, when I I went to school here. You went to school at Notre Dame, and I was at Princeton, and Princeton was way beyond me. But we were going to look at Princeton, and we're looking at all the buildings, and looking on the campus. And my mom goes, "Well, what do you think? How do you like it?" And I go, "Mom, awesome buildings. I mean, how am I supposed to know?" Okay, and what I'm saying is, how can you know South Bend? You could say, well, or how can you know Notre Dame? Well, the buildings are nice. I like the trees.
Yeah.
And you could argue that the best way to know a town, like Grand Rapids, where we were, if I wanted to know Grand Rapids, a quick way would be, let me watch their public access channel. What are the local? I want to see what the local people are producing, what they're saying.
That's a good point.
Wouldn't that give me a better flavor of the town than just seeing the streets and?
Oh yeah, no, I think that's right. I think that when you turn on that TV and you see, this, I think it really packs a punch. Yeah, I think it does.
Right, and I think the healthier we get, and the more community we get, in community at least involves some kind of interaction. A healthy community is dialogue. Ideally, it's dialogue on the issues that really deal with reality. Okay, right. So let's say what's going on in Iraq, what's going on in the Catholic Church, or if we're really healthy, we're on top of it.
And I think the ones I've seen on TV, some of the shows that they've played on MATV on the PEG channel, I think they're pretty well done. I mean, look, Hollywood is Hollywood, but some of these are really well done, and you kind of get drawn into the story simply because you recognize something in the background. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity for people to sit here and film this community, which is really changing and growing and improving all the time. I mean, this is a great opportunity. I think a lot of people have a lot of talent. They have that talent unless they try it.
Sure, and it could be in so many fields. you know.
Yeah.
My interest is like theology and history.
Right.
But there's so many fields,
So
right?
it could be an artist or a music group, local group of some sort that wants to get the word out, or a community event group. It could be any of the above, or beyond that.
And they have
Yeah.
that. They have the musical groups that come on, and it's kind of nice to watch and listen to. I don't know what them to do, but they say, yeah, I know that guy, I know her,
And it could be business topics too. I'm in the business world, and it could be a local business group or individual that wants to get their word out. So.
And
Yeah.
right now they're covering, as I've seen it, I think Bend City Council, they're now covering that real time. Is that right, Peter and Mike? Do I have that
It's
right?
live? They're doing it live?
I think I may have that wrong, but I think
They do that in some of the cities.
Mishawaka.
Like Grand Rapids, I don't know if they're doing it.
I thought in South Bend they were doing it live. It's very good quality. It is very good quality, and it's really improved over time. It's very sharp. It's very clear. You can hear it. It's split screen, so you hear the person and you can see the city council sitting there. It's a wonderful asset, I would think, for the political parties or candidates to use. There's no restriction on them using it.
Well,
so-
the reason a lot of these cities run the public access, Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids, they're city employees, because it's so fundamental. In other words, the politicians use it to get elected. I mean, they use it to campaign. They use it to discuss.
Right.
So not only can they hold the meetings, but the politicians and whoever's running against them in the next election can get on the TV, challenge what they're doing, commend what they're doing. And so that rarely do they go to a city council meeting. People don't, but they'll watch it on TV, which is a phenomena. I mean, why don't you just go down and go to the city meeting? They don't,
No.
Right.
but they'll watch it. And they're saying in those other cities that were the city council meetings.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So in terms of accessibility for folks, if someone has a DVD quality camera, they can submit a DVD, or perhaps you could get into some of the other avenues. I know there's the studio accessibility and also our camera. If you could get into that.
Right. When we were in Wyoming, the fellow there, Tom, said, "Hey, we got this free equipment. We're giving it away. Does anybody want it?" Was there, and the guy from Fort Wayne, I was going, well, should I raise my hand? Should we take it? And the fellow from Fort Wayne, who actually did the filming with him, he raised his hand and he said they wanted it. And I go, well, God's will be done. Well, and then Robert comes up and says, "Peter, we need it. We need it. Go and tell him we need it." And I said, "Really?" so I went and I said, maybe we need it. And he goes, "Yeah, maybe you're right." So anyway, ended up.
This is it?
Well, we
It is.
got tons of equipment. There's two cameras. I just brought the one piece in.
Okay.
We got monitors. We got to go back more.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Right. So what our hope is that we can expand on studio space here, and talking to the people that work at Michiana Access and WNIT, because we film in WNIT studios, is that if we can get volunteers, and that's one of the reasons we're on the show here. We are appealing for people to get involved. One way you can get involved is, in these other cities, they get a lot of volunteers.
So if you're a college student majoring in communications or telecom or something like that, and you want some experience, or journalism,
They need people to film, I think they still do, Mishawaka. And if they had volunteers, they'd be filming them. So
so even a political science major looking for some hands-on.
you could be right there filming
Right.
the city council meetings. That wouldn't hurt you on a resume. I mean, if that kind of thing is experience,
Right.
and you see it firsthand, and then you're contributing, you get two birds with one stone kind of thing, right? I mean,
Right. That's a good point.
Right, so these other cities do use the volunteers, and for some reason, volunteers like to do it. They see an interest, and that's not happening here yet too much.
Well, you've got people who've got ideas for programs, and they come in, and you're also talking then about people coming in, actually operating the equipment, operating the camera, and then putting it onto the disc, and then bringing it down, and setting up a studio. Isn't there something at the library,
The library.
Central County Public Library downtown?
Library
there?
just started last year, or no, 5 months, 6 months ago. Down
It's called Studio 304. or something?
304.
Okay.
And now they don't. The rooms are real small. They only have like a. I don't think they can take the camera out.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So that's separate. That's library stuff.
Yeah, it's very limited, but you can film at the library. These other cities, they loan the cameras out, so you can film outside the studio. They have editing rooms, so they help you edit, which you can do at Studio 304.
Okay.
We just need to expand more. The studio time that's available here, if you get a show, you can only maybe get in once a month or once every 2 months. So,
And that's the phone number people can call? That we
Yeah,
have, or
right.
is it-
yep.
Area code 574-288-7876.
Right, and that's not just to get the studio. You call them to get your show going.
Right.
Right.
But see, you're going to have to produce your own show outside of the studio because
Right.
But that's what's happening all across the country. They're limiting studio time across the country because people can borrow the camera, buy a camera, and produce outside.
Now you've talked about getting equipment. You're actually getting equipment. You're getting like this camera here,
Right.
other cameras, other stuff, and we're still Public Access Michiana is still kind of working out how to do that, how to make that available and stuff like that.
What I would like, let's say they have a place right down 2 blocks from here.
Right.
Let's say we rented a studio space, and it's very cheap, like $200 a month. So if we had a studio there at any time, whoever does have a show, then they know they could use that. Okay, and if we had volunteers, or if we had to pay, I don't know, whatever, but then we know if there was a need for a conference of something, or you were producing a show and you needed to have a studio, one's available. I mean, that's one thought I've had.
Sure. Well, that's a good thought. I mean, that lets people,
So they
know.
can. I mean, hey,
If
I
they
want. There's a studio time. We can get a volunteer.
They have more flexibility on when they can do it.
Right, because there's limited funding here.
Limited time.
Down here at
MATV.
MATV and being housed here at limited funding, they can't expand their studio times. So all you can get is once a month or once every 2 months,
Okay.
just an hour.
Okay.
But if you want a show that's put on more regularly than that, you can film your own show.
Yes.
And send it on DVD if you have the capability to do that.
Right, once it might be every 2 months. You can still use the studio, but you're going to have to turn in a DVD.
Right.
And ideally, it used to be I always produced a show once a week, okay? And I very rarely ever had a replay. And if you watch MATV, there's a lot of replays, okay? And a lot of the cities only allow maybe 2 shows in a row, that you can replay.
Yeah, there's a choke point on availability of studio, of a studio time, equipment and stuff. I mean, people could film their own if they had the cameras
Right.
and bring in the DVD.
Absolutely.
And a lot
but-
of people these days are capable of that.
And it's not, from what I understand.
No, but at this stage, it wouldn't hurt to have an extra studio. And there's studios all over. Notre Dame has a lot of studios. I'm sure St. Mary's has them. I think
Yeah.
Bethel has them. They're all over, but they're just not available exactly.
Okay.
So if there was
Thanks for clearing that up. Yeah.
if there was a studio where people didn't have to hardly pay anything, because who wants to pay $40
Right.
to do what we're doing? But what we're doing, I knew I had that thought. I didn't want to lose it. We're a nonprofit, right, organization, and what they really push in these other cities is getting nonprofits to use public access.
Yeah.
Point.
Okay, I mean, like Rotary. There's no reason why, theoretically, Rotary couldn't have a show. Not that they would, but just pick out any nonprofit
Right.
organization.
Right.
If they're really doing, they may want to have, and they may allow you to have once a month show. I don't know what the exact rules are. Usually, most public access is they want you to have a show a week. Individuals that could do this.
Right. It could be groups.
Right.
It's really wide open, and it's not that hard, really. You're just getting the time and having somebody operate the equipment if you need that.
This is basically an outreach and a call to get the word out to let people know that the resource is here, so that they can get shows going and broadcast a little bit more than what's out there on the normal news.
Right, because local news is the most watched show going. People want to know what's going on where they live.
Yeah, but you're also talking about shows like dramas. I mean, like I saw one the other night of it's called The Bridge. That's what it was, and I think I alluded to it briefly before. But it's about this guy courting this gal here in South Bend, and it was kind of fun to watch because it's right here in downtown. And
Show on here?
it was on MATV. It was on a Sunday night, and it was they were acting, and sometimes you recognize the actors. I've seen other shows where you recognize the actors. Some of the people in there. It's amateur. It's non-professional. These guys aren't professional Hollywood producers, but they're turning out a product that you recognize the people, and it's kind of interesting. It gets your attention. So, I mean, it's creative. It requires you to do what they're doing. You got to sit down and write a script. You got to sit down and figure out how we're going to do the camera angles, where we're going to sit down and do this. I mean, a lot of people want to be in show business and be in the movies and write scripts and be writers. And this is a wonderful opportunity to do it.
A lot of people
and they've got people who are going to watch, because people do watch. Michiana Access TV.
Before they shut us down, it was just Comcast, and you'd come on my shows sometimes, and you noticed if you were on,
Oh yeah,
you'd just walk around, at your office or wherever you went.
yeah. They said, "Boy, that was something you were on tonight."
Well, people see it, and there's an enjoyment to watch something that the person,
Oh sure.
and then you may be seeing them,
Oh
Right.
sure.
and then they can engage in what you're talking about, and it is about helping the community engage itself.
Right.
If these shows are out on the internet, if people can access them, because so many people watch TV through the internet, is
that's a good
MATV
point.
on the internet, or is
They're doing that in some of these other
That's a good
cities.
point.
I think they call it streaming, or
Right.
that's very. They haven't grown to that point. I think Grand Rapids. I think they're streaming.
Are they?
especially if folks aren't getting AT&T or Comcast, and a lot of people do watch TV through through internet resources.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The growth will. I mean, what some people can do. I mean, I just put my first show on YouTube. And I went down to the public library, and it wasn't working. It should be so simple. It didn't work. And it didn't work. But we got it on there, and I just have. I mean, I should get all the shows, and you can just upload them
Right.
Right.
onto
Well,
YouTube.
and then you can advertise it on your Facebook page if someone also has a Facebook page, which can get to local contacts within your Facebook, which I know we've talked about doing organization too, just to put out the word. So there's multiple avenues that someone can go in addition to getting the show on this.
Yeah,
So,
that's a real good point, Mike. I didn't think about that. So, like, when you make a show here, limited. Make a show for MATV, you're not just limited to running it on the TV. You can, like you said, you can put it elsewhere too.
right.
So that's multiple creatures with one stone. I don't want to hurt any.
Because I've been to a couple of funerals in the last 2 weeks, and a lot of people at the reception are people I grew up with. This is back in Wisconsin. So they go, "Well, what do you do?" Well, driving motor homes. Okay. Well, they want to know more than that because they know who I am. Okay. And I said,
This is a Notre Dame theologian, by the way.
Yeah,
right? So you're
a master's degree in
Right.
theology.
well, that's my interest. Yes.
right.
But I said, well, I use the public access television. Well, they're interested in that, right? Yeah, well, that's interesting. Can I get it? Can I see it on YouTube? In other words, you want to do something. You want to be living locally. So this is an opportunity. You're in communication primarily with the people where you live. But what is produced here, you can allow other people to see what your dialogue is local.
Yeah.
Right.
You're allowing people from the outside. I think
Yeah.
that's a Catholic concept of, there's a term for it.
Subsidiarity, I believe.
Yeah, you could be right. That's right. That could
Right,
be right. Yeah.
right. And the other Catholic concept is Inter Mirifica, which was,
Well, that's from the Second Vatican Council.
right,
Yeah,
it's one of the
yeah.
first,
First thing that came out of the Vatican Council was Inter Mirifica, yeah.
Right.
The decree on social communications.
Okay.
Right, and you've read it.
Yeah.
How would you summarize the Inter Mirifica?
It's
the
very
idea?
short, and it says that the media's got a responsibility to the truth, and I'm just summarizing the key points, and they need to put the truth out there. Society needs to know the truth, and the drama and the entertainment needs to be uplifting, and it needs to be good, and the state has got a stake. The state has a stake. The civil authorities have a stake. The media runs in accordance with principles of truth and in a manner that's uplifting to people. Because what's visible, what you see on the moving pictures, what you see on the screen, impact on you. Music has an impact on you. Movies have an impact on you. This stuff is really powerful, and so there's a real obligation to make sure that happens.
And part of it is this article that you gave me today. Six corporations control 90% of the media in America.
Right.
And part of Inter Mirifica, when I read it, was the urgency of Christians, and of course this is for Catholics, but for Catholics or into the marketplace to compete with these mega corporations who are not Christian. And if we don't compete, then everybody's going to be overwhelmed by the non-Christian type of media that's out.
Yeah, you got to kind of look at the mainstream TV, and you just sort of notice certain themes after a while.
Well, I don't think there's, I mean, if you look at these six corporations.
Yeah, it's very revealing. I've looked at that. What? In the
Right,
dominant media?
you got GE, which is Comcast, NBC, Universal Pictures, Focus Features. Then you got News Corp, and that's Fox, Wall Street Journal, and New York Post. And you got Disney, that's ESPN, Pixar, Miramax, Marvel Studios. Then you got Viacom, that's MTV, Nick Jr., BET, CMT, Paramount Pictures. And you got Time Warner, CNN, HBO, Time, PBS, Showtime, Smithsonian Channel, NFL.com, Jeopardy, 60 Minutes. But they control 90% of the media, and if I understood that Inter Mirifica article, is that it's urgent that...
There was an urgency to it, yeah.
And I can share just a local example of how that trickles down to local communities like ours. If folks out there rely on, because they're in a hurry, they're busy people going to work and dropping their kids off at school, if they're relying on 16 Morning News or WSBT to get their national headlines or national talking points for the day of what's going on out in the national and international scene, the local WNDU station is getting their national news stories from the affiliate, probably out of Chicago in our case, which gets it from the New York or wherever. So they're getting trickled down, filtered and controlled information from the the NBC, which is again owned by the six corporatist entities. So even though it might seem local because Tricia and Gordy or whoever is reading it from the teleprompter, it's really filtered information from high levels of our society, and that's why speaking of local, folks difference by putting news stories or something of political interest or religious interest like you do, Peter, out locally through this thing right here or on their own. That's why it's so important, because a lot of people trust and be able to trust, but they can't. And that's why they probably put out that statement on social responsibility in the media, because it's important that people do know the truth, and we indeed actually have an obligation to seek out the truth. It led me to get on your group here about it, and it's important that we grow it so that we become a strong resource.
Yeah, I mean, what do you see as the ideal sense? I mean, you ever picture an ideal community? I mean, I have a few ideas.
Can't say I have, no.
Well, the ideal community in my mind would be the local people have developed, their passion is to know more about Iraq than Washington. Passion is to know more about these issues that are smothering us, that we're not relying on D.C. or Indianapolis necessarily to tell us what's going on and to tell us how to think. I mean, Notre Dame has their own theology department, right? Can't they? They can wrestle with the theological issues. They can say, okay, not that I agree with them. Okay.
I'm just saying,
Okay, but you want the local people to take. I mean, it's the dominion mandate. God told Adam to take dominion, right? I mean, we are to like you're the father in the home. You're to run that home, right? I mean, you're to take dominion, make sure it's run right.
I don't know, is my wife watching?
And, the leaders of the city know the important issues that are affecting us. And they have a strong opinion. They what position to take. So if Washington says something, we can speak as a community and say, you're wrong. Or if, so that we're not just totally reliant on the corporations telling us how to understand the news.
So that's
Yeah.
why we're here.
Yeah.
We're here to encourage people to to participate. And
Find out what's going on and contribute to the culture and to the society in a good
And Peter, we're open
in a way
to,
they like.
our group itself, we're open to additional volunteers, I would think, right? People who want to help us, grow it.
oh yeah, I mean people to come on our board or this and that.
Or
Oh yeah, we got.
all of the above.
I would say, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
I mean,
sure.
the immediate need for this studio, the immediate need is for volunteers.
Okay.
Okay, people that can volunteer don't have the funds to pay. Where Ann Arbor, they have money to pay for 20 employees.
Yeah, so it's learning how to do something as a volunteer.
Yeah, involved. I mean, a lot of people's careers did start by public involvement with public access. Either actually in the business of filming and that, or their show itself started out at public. They moved up.
Who are some of those folks?
Oh, I mean, I've read about them. Like people, like when Los Angeles had a real powerful public access, but when these passed, it was cut down, and so there was groups in Los Angeles trying to get it back up. In fact, we made about 150 copies of their shows, passed them out here locally, to the council, because the whole thing, how they were trying to get theirs back and how hard it was.
And the funding you're talking about is basically funding that comes from when the law changed. What happened was that the cable operators had the funding anymore for these studios, as I understand it. So now, like Michiana Access TV is really dependent on money that it gets from the local government, and they figure that out by the various fees they get from the cable providers. They figure out how much they can provide.
5% of whatever Comcast or AT&T make, 5% has to go back to the city, and that's a fee their territory.
Okay.
Okay, because they got to put the cables through their land, and so they got to give back 5%. Now, Ann Arbor, the lady was very progressive. They passed a law. That 5% cannot be diminished. The full 5% has to go for public access, or I'm not quite sure if it's the full 5%, but it's a very high percentage, and it can't be diminished, except 8 out of the 10 council people have to vote to diminish it. Okay, so it's very hard to get 8 out of the 10 to take the funding away,
Right.
especially when they got 20 city employees, and the politicians can't get elected unless
Right.
it's so integral into their community.
Right.
Well, Fort Wayne has a good program too, don't they?
Oh yeah, Fort Wayne has like 3 channels. And
Oh, wow.
I think theirs is $500,000. I mean, the last I looked was several years ago, but Fort Wayne, Kalamazoo were dollars from those franchise fees, and I'm sure it's higher now.
Yeah.
We get South Bend puts in 65,000. It's about 85,000 total. So South Bend puts in about 65, county maybe 10, and Mishawaka 10, something like that.
Something like that,
Something
okay.
like that. But they can't survive without that 5%. Some of that 5% that Comcast and AT&T has to pay as a franchise fee, the way they want. And theoretically, it was assumed that they were going to use that for public access until they changed the law. See, Comcast had to provide that.
The Comcast had to provide it out of their own.
And then it went back to the local, and we don't want to have public access anymore,
Right.
which is a tragedy, because when you see these communities that are really using public access, it's like, wow.
Now, the 5-year plan, wasn't there, for making the funding available from the various government entities here in Michiana? I'm talking about South Bend, Mishawaka, and St. Joe County. So that 5 years is
Five-year
what, about
agreement.
two?
We're halfway through.
Yeah, okay.
So we really need the community to get involved because if
clock's
our
ticking.
legislators, if their congressmen don't hear people, their natural tendency is to use the money for something else. It's their natural tendency. So we have to encourage them, and we have to keep this program growing and getting as good as possible. So we need to lobby them, so to speak, so that they will continue the funding.
I mean, there are a lot of producers now, aren't there? I mean, I look at it, they've got the schedule here, the website, but I think it runs longer than the schedule. I mean, I seem to remember this morning early, when I was up early, they were
24 hours a day?
I don't know if it's gone to 24. It's a lot of,
It's on 99.
Yeah,
there's a
okay.
lot of programs on that.
Right.
There got to be a lot of producers. A lot of people
Yeah.
send in stuff or filming here, so, and
How
I
do
don't know the
people,
number.
what's the best way for people to contact you, contacting you, or the number that we gave?
They can contact us, you can contact on my phone number. We have a website that we haven't been using that.
No, it's
But
pretty,
got our contact info on it. And
it does, yeah.
Yeah, Public Access Michiana.
Is that it, Public Access Michiana? Or is it PAM.org? I can't remember what it
It's
is.
publicaccessmichiana.org.
Okay.
And, unfortunately, I'm not really a strong computer person.
so again, the need for volunteers to help grow it could come in that form too.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. I mean, we can get on this TV right here and push it. That's one thing we're doing. We all individually do things.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we could be doing a lot more. Okay.
Right.
I mean, I'm just sending out this afternoon from Michigan Access TV. They got 153 likes. 153 people like this, meaning like this website, like this station, like what they're doing. Like you can like things on Facebook.
Right.
153 people have done that. That's a lot.
That's great.
Really. That's really a lot. Because you figure that for every person who does it, there's a few that don't, but they want to. So, there's hundreds of people out there.
Right.
There are a lot of producers out there.
Right. I mean, we're dealing with.
And potential producers.
We're living in a time also, and Mike, that's especially up your alley because you're concerned for the big picture. I mean, you're concerned about what's really right.
No, we should all be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of dark areas in our country right now. I mean, a lot, you talk to the older people, I'll tell you, they're really somewhat depressed. People that are over 60.
Some, others are following mainstream doctrine on things.
Right, but a lot of my
So,
friends, I went to the two funerals and were over 60, and they got time to think, and they do not like where this country's going at all. And so now's the time to think and speak out.
Right.
I mean, don't you think?
At least discuss things. I mean, like on our program here, we could talk about a lot of things. And people can have their own programs and talk about that. I saw something with the Libertarians the other night on Channel 99. They were sitting there having a discussion, a couple of them.
Right.
And that was a great discussion. I really enjoyed it. They were talking about economic theory, and they were throwing ideas back and forth. And this was an opportunity for these guys to try to do something to make things better. What you're talking, you can do that on Michigan Access TV.
Right, right. I mean, the local community is kind of where it's at. I mean, I go back to my hometown. Most people left, and it was interesting getting back because these are all people we grew up with.
Oh, yeah.
The community that you once had.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
But a lot of the local communities are fragmenting,
Yeah.
and you've got to find a way to enrich fragmentation is what Mike Jones calls the deracination. And so if it's all just YouTube and everybody's a hyper individual but there's no local connection, that's a big problem.
Well, we certainly have a wonderful tool right here. And, there are a lot of people to thank for it. There are too many, I think, to list. I can see a lot of faces in my head, but
We're just a small that have been
Yeah.
involved. and you've really spearheaded a lot of this,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, Peter.
the community
Well-
the community owes you a thanks.
Like with George Lane, without George initially, this could not have gotten off the ground. We had some other people helping us.
Oh, we did.
Susan Mahoney.
Yeah, Susan.
Without
helped.
her efforts, it couldn't have gotten off the ground.
Well, and the people here tonight helping with the filming, and
That's right. And the local elected officials, city council, the mayor of South Bend, the mayor of Mishawaka, the city council of Mishawaka, the county council of St. Joe County, they were helpful.
Well, we couldn't be here without them.
We couldn't
If
be
they hadn't approved this, we couldn't be here.
No.
So I mean, the scripture, one of the most powerful scriptures is St. Paul, where he said, Hymenaeus of Satan, learn not to blaspheme. And then he says, therefore, I urge that prayers, supplications, intercessions, giving of thanks be offered up on behalf of all men and for kings, and that we may lead a peaceful and godly life in all honesty and godliness. But the emphasis is that Paul is saying Hymenaeus and Alexander were speaking evil of those in authority. And he was saying, no, I'm giving them over to Satan, okay? And I want you.
You mean the guys who were talking bad about the authorities?
Oh, yeah.
The guys who are talking bad about the authorities are going to get in trouble.
Paul said, I'm giving them over to Satan for
Okay.
talking bad about the authority.
Okay.
And then he says, therefore, I urge, first of all, that prayers, supplications, intercessions, giving of thanks be offered on behalf of all men and for kings and those in authority. So we have to, we're under government. I mean, if the government officials haven't provided this opportunity for us, we could say, well, they owe it to us. Well, how it works.
that is a taste of what people can get on your show.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I talk about stuff like that.
Yeah, you have.
But that's, but there's people that take the other position. That government's basically evil. Like my nephew, he thinks all government's evil.
Right,
He's a
yeah.
big, But the Christian position's different on all these things.
Yeah. I think we should, people take both sides of the issue, but if they sign up here on Michiana Access TV, to film, to produce, they really need to make it. Would you agree with that? I mean, if people have got a program, they need
Show
to.
up and because
yeah.
these people are here and they're waiting. Right.
Oh, yeah, it's a
Right.
commitment. It's a commitment. And and ideally they want you to produce a show once a week, but they know the studio time's not that much available. So sometimes they'll let the show run 2 or 3 times.
Right.
They've let ours, because I've been gone, they've let it run. But hopefully we'll let this run probably a couple weeks, and then we got to produce another one. And so I think we're one. I don't know of any last thoughts other than this is Public Access Michiana, and we're in advocacy for MATV, Michiana Access TV, and we need volunteers. They need volunteers, and we can get this public access to the point where it becomes more and more vibrant for the community. Notre Dame, Bethel, IUSB, we need to get everybody participating.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And on
The
a
one
gloomy
call.
January day in South Bend, it's been really nice to sit under some bright lights in the studio. It's really not that hard to do. So the chance and
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so till next time, Shannon.
thanks.